Hello, it is Askkrystalracquel and I'm back again with another video today. Today is day 16 of our 21 days of change, and I'm excited to talk about a topic with you all today. What caused me to think about this particular topic is a video I saw by someone named Terrell Owen. The name sounds very familiar, I just don't know who this person is. However, this person made some comments and it was replayed on a popular morning talk show on the radio called The Breakfast Club, and it was just so interesting to me. It made me start thinking of so many different things and how in our society sometimes people make excuses for their preferences in dating. I think it's very important for us to not view any race as better than our own or view our race as better than other races, although culturally, you know, it's not a bad thing to be in the same culture. But basically the comment that was made, I took a lot of notes on this so I wouldn't forget. The comment that was made by him that made me start to thinking is he talked about how he was in high school. He's a dark-skinned man. He was in high school and he was being teased. He tried to date black girls, but they didn't like him, or they made fun of his complexion. And the same thing happened in college. And he also mentioned that he was scrawny. Also, of course, we would understand because he's a rich person, he's a celebrity. At that time, he didn't have those funds. So he basically was using that backdrop to say, I don't date black women anymore. Although he didn't phrase it like that. He's more dates white women. I thought it was very interesting to me because it made me think of a few things. Maybe think of in our race how different skin tones are seen as better, because that made me question in all of high school and all of college, who was he actually going after? He said black women, but it shows me that maybe he wasn't interested in women who are of a darker complexion, because if these black women were making fun of his complexion, that would let you assume that they were lighter than him, right? And of course, this isn't really a debate about, light skin, dark skin, but that makes you question things as well. Because if he was going for someone who was of a similar tone to him, they most likely would not have been making fun of him because they would have the same skin tone. So keep that in mind. And I just thought it was very interesting. And somebody commented and they were like, okay, so you're saying that, black women weren't interested in you during that time when you were in high school and college and you were scrawny. So first of all, the white women most likely were not checking for you either. And you also didn't have money at that time. So now you're saying all these women of a certain race like you, but keep in mind you weren't rich then. So I just thought it was interesting. You have to be mindful of things that we're saying. When we have God in our lives, it's not about race, this, that, or trying to put down people of a certain race. Because listen, if you're a very dark-skinned man or woman, most likely you have two black parents. So there's no need to try to diminish who a woman of your race or your complexion is, because most likely you have a parent of similar complexion, right? Just the way genetics work, it's very unlikely that a man who is very, 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 very dark skinned is not going to have at least one very dark skinned parent or both parents who are also black. This all caused, and just so you're aware, this was posted I think about 3 days ago when this man made comments on the Breakfast Club that they replayed. And I just think it's very important to realize the attitude behind these things. That's why it's so important to me. I know I talked about my situation. It's so important for me to raise my children and my sons and daughters when that time comes to love themselves, love who they are. Just a little bit about me. I've grown up in black households. Growing up, I would say most of my cousins were dark-skinned black people, and my siblings are black, and my friends growing up were, depending on what type of school I was going to, but I would always have at least, I would always have interact with black people because, you gravitate towards what you're used to. I'm not saying I didn't have friends of a different race or racial group at all, but I'm just saying in general, I always had black friends in addition to any other type of friends that I had. So I say all this to say, we just have to really understand that no group is better than another, and we should all be interested in the experience of our people, right? So we're not going to make it seem like women who are Black are loud, rude, and things like that, because it's just not true. How many times do we hear, or do we hear people saying, oh yeah, oh that person's a Latina, they're just spicy, oh they're fiery? That's very interesting to me, because it'll be accepted in one group. And just for anyone who's just seen this video for the first time or doesn't know much about me, I've explained before that my background is looking at my grandparents. It's three Black Caribbean grandparents and one Afro Latino Caribbean grandparent. Okay, so basically we have to just understand, like, it's not okay to always try to label a group a certain way. And to me, I truly do feel that people who try to label a certain race one way and say, oh, you know, Black girls are this, that to me just shows me that, okay, this person maybe is probably from the inner city, or maybe they haven't expanded their circle, maybe they grew up in a very interesting environment. And because that, for somebody to believe that, that just shows me that you haven't maybe you grew up in a neighborhood that wasn't so good. Because on average, you know, in everyday life, I don't come across people who are just like acting wild, crazy, you know, have bad attitudes. So that always makes you question things like, okay, what is this person's upbringing in the first place for them to have this closed world view and think everybody from a certain race is one way? And then also the way it was, to me, I took it as, this is just somebody's excuse to try to exclude a certain group. And of course, if somebody of your race, ladies, if there's a man of your race and he's not interested in women of your race, you definitely don't want him anyway. But that, it just kind of shows you that this was this man's excuse to say a woman of this particular race is crazy and stuff like that. But in my head, I'm like, please, cross a woman and you will see crazy regardless. So I just find it interesting. People use it as kind of an excuse. Oh, well, this is what happened. Okay, that's very interesting to me. But I just want to say it's not true. You know, just be mindful of those type of people, because I would say, go where you're wanted, like everybody says, right? If somebody doesn't want you, okay, like don't worry about them, right? So a lot of times people are limiting themselves, and I always say, just go think about what you want for your family. You want somebody who has good moral values, and if you're somebody who would like to make sure that you have a Black man and a Black husband, that's fine, you know, move forward and do what you have to do. When I was younger, or like, you know, early 20s, I'm sure looking in the future, I probably assumed that I would be with a Black American man. And just a bit about my background, of course, my parents are originally from the Caribbean, but I was born in the United States, so I have both cultures. I have a Caribbean background as well as a Black American culture. So just being a Black American in the United States, and just the way attraction works, I just assumed that, you know, the people that would be most attracted to me would probably be Black Americans, and I would end up with a Black American. But you know, it's perfectly fine to want someone from your culture, because that person understands you, they understand your experience. And a lot of times people end up thinking to themselves, oh, well, this culture doesn't want me, so let me go to this other culture, they're way better. But you have to understand, do you know anybody from that culture? Did you grow up around that other culture? Do you know the ins and outs of their culture? Because you could be setting yourself up for failure. This makes me think of Mariah Carey. I remember how every interview, not every interview, but she used to talk a lot about how she was very confused growing up. Black kids didn't accept her, white kids didn't accept her. So just think about it, right? Like there's a cultural group. One person could be of this culture, another person's from the same culture. You combine, your kids will have that same culture, right? Versus Mariah Carey, her mother was white, her father was Black, and now she has these two cultures. She was a little bit confused because she didn't know which side she belonged to, and both sides didn't accept her. So I'm, of course, not saying anything against interracial dating, but I'm just saying you have to understand the reasons why you're going for somebody. If you're going, growing up in middle school, high school, I knew a girl. She was very dark skinned, black African American. And I remember her saying she doesn't want somebody who is dark skinned like her because she doesn't want dark skinned children. And you know, I've never forgotten that. I believe she's with somebody now, and he's a dark skinned man. You know, you learn from when you're younger, but obviously her saying that, it let me realize that it had been ingrained in her mind that maybe black wasn't beautiful, dark skin wasn't beautiful. So we have to be very careful of what we're instilling in other people, what we're instilling in terms of, you know, loving ourselves, you know, caring for ourselves. I remember, I think when I was 19 is when I was like, you know, I'm not getting the lectures anymore. I stopped. You know, my hair length when I straighten, it's a pretty long length. It's, I don't know where you would say, probably around here, but I just realized, okay, wait a minute, why? We need to be proud of who we are. We need to accept ourselves as we are. We're beautiful the way we are. God designed us in a beautiful way. If you want to change some things about you, if you want to say, hey, I want to straighten my hair, oh, I want to wear a weave, oh, I want to put makeup on and do things like that, you certainly can. But just remember, you shouldn't feel unattractive when you don't have those things. Let me just get back to the main topic. You know, I think I got the gist of it. Oh yeah, just keep in mind there are cultural differences. So if you're trying to get with somebody because of this reason, you have to understand you're gonna have to integrate your culture with them. If you're not familiar with that culture, you know, if you don't know anything about their culture, you're gonna end up in a bad situation. You guys are gonna be fighting about what you want to teach your children, what culture you want, or let's say you have two very distinct cultures, your child is probably going to gravitate towards one or the other. Not saying there's anything wrong, but I mean, I do think something that is beautiful is people who have cultures. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's beautiful. It's nice. I think it's nice to get a mix of people, but I think it's also beautiful when people actually have their culture. Whenever I see like people from Africa, they have a distinct culture. I think it's beautiful. You know, those things are very nice. When I see people from India, they have a very distinct culture. It's beautiful. So I just think we have to be mindful. We can't really judge too much. And we also, based on what this gentleman was saying, Terrell, he's a black man, darker skinned black man, and he seemed to have closed himself off to black women. And of course, like I said at the start, if he's not interested in black women, then black women, yes, we certainly do not want him. However, we have to understand that we can't think that someone is better than another person. We can't also think, well, you know, I can't judge a group and say, oh, well, I don't like anybody from this particular race because I think none of them are attractive. Those things are strange, especially if we're living our lives as Christian, if we're trying to, you know, do the right thing in our lives. We can't be judging people like that and trying to think one race is better than the other. Like, it's just ridiculous. Everyone is unique, everyone is different, and you need to judge people based on their character and not try to judge them based on their appearance. Or you'll say, you know, like a man, maybe, I don't want to focus on black men, but it's just an example that came to me. Someone might say, well, I want to get with this woman over here because she's not one of my race. And let's say it's a black man, I'll just use that as an example. And then he may get with a woman of a different race, and then they might have a daughter, and then maybe that man decides he doesn't want to be with that woman and it doesn't work out. Now there's a daughter, she may have Afro textured hair, and now there's a woman who maybe is not familiar with that hair texture. Then that child may grow up with certain experiences and, you know, not thinking her hair is beautiful or feeling like it was too hard to deal with and things like that. It doesn't have to do with race necessarily, because it happens with people who are from black households as well, but just overall, we have to be mindful of those things. And people, you know, black women as well, because I'm seeing a lot online where women are saying things like, you know, black women should not date black men and all these things. Let's just be realistic here. This is not what it's about. There are some awesome black men out here. There are wonderful black men out here. I spoke, I think, in one of my last videos about how when I was dating, there were 3 options in terms of marriage, and unfortunately, none of them were black Americans. One was black, originally from an African background, and then 2 were Hispanics. But there are certainly wonderful black people. We have to not try to limit ourselves and not say, oh, well, I don't like black men, so I'm not going to date them anymore. I'm going to go date a different race. You're going to get a different race, a different issue with another race. Is their family even going to like you? So we have to be mindful of things that we're spewing. Be open. I always say, like who likes you, right? So when I was dating and people who were interested in me, I would see if they were a good fit for me and I would move forward. You know, it's not about saying another race is better than the other, because that is certainly not the case. We have to find people who treat us well. And let's say you are somebody who, you're a black woman and you want a black man. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to find someone in your culture because they're going to understand you. However, I'm saying if you're a Christian, don't limit yourself and don't make it to where, I only want a black man, and things haven't been going well for me in the dating world, so I'm only gonna date black men. And maybe there's another man, he might be an Indian man, he's been watching you, he's interested in you, and he wants to treat you well. So just keep those things in mind. It's not all about race, but I urge you all to be mindful, because in my situation, I said I'm open. And when I was younger, 20s, I would have thought that maybe the person I ended up with would be a black American man, but that's not the case. So when I was dating, when I was in my early 30s, I'm still in my early 30s, but when I was dating about a year or two ago, I wanted to see who was interested in me, and then from there I would judge those people, not about the race. So if you're excluding somebody based on the race, that's horrible, and you need some healing to do. You need to go through and have some help in terms of analyzing what it is that makes you think that a race is not good enough for you. And a lot of times people don't even realize that they're picking someone from a certain race because they want to feel good about themselves. They want to feel better. They feel like if they have someone from this race, then people are going to look at them like a good thing. Let me tell you, there's someone I know, there's a family member. I know them. They are married to a white person. And I have seen on their social media, on their Instagram, I have seen the people that they follow, the people that they're looking at, that they follow and like their pictures. There are women who are of their race. A lot of them are of their race, and they are scantily clad. So I see that the people that they're liking and looking at their photos do not look like their wife. So, be mindful of what you're doing and be mindful of the relationships that you're getting. Then make sure you're not getting into relationships to make your father mad. Make sure you're not getting in relationships to make your mother mad. Make sure you are getting in relationships based on character, not because you think this person looks better, this group has a better shape, this group has longer hair, this group looks better and dresses well. We have to just be mindful of what we're doing, because it's going to come back to bite you. If your reasoning for dating someone who is of a different race or even skin tone than you is based on superficial things or negative things, it's going to come out eventually. I just urge you all to make sure yes, of course you can have your preferences, right? You can say, I have a preference where I would like a man to be 6'5" and over. Okay, those are some things that you're gonna have to really evaluate and say, okay, what are the best qualities that I'm looking for in someone? Are the qualities that they have to do with them being extremely tall? No, it does not. You have to, when you start realizing what really matters, you're going to then decide. You're going to be ready to date. If you're not able to differentiate between a want and a necessity, it's not time for you to date, and then something that comes to mind is when I was younger, I would recall, it depends on what area you're in, right? I'm considered like a medium brown skinned African American. I don't know if you would call me African American because my family's from the Caribbean, but yes, I'm considered African American, or black, I should say. And I recall when I was living in a certain city where there's a lot of very dark skinned Black people. And I remember I wouldn't feel good when I felt like a man was approaching me because I was lighter than him. And I just remember feeling very just not feeling good about it, and feeling like this person's not really interested in me. They're interested in my tone. And I think it's okay to think that everyone has a nice skin tone, but I don't think it's horrible if you don't like your own skin tone, so you're looking for someone who's a shade or two lighter than you. So just be mindful of those things. And I just think we just need to remember that there's somebody out there for all of us, and we have to make sure we're looking at things that are God-based, that are based on character, love, and of course you have to be attracted to that person. But you know, if you know that growing up no one really was interested in checking for you, and now you're rich, you have a good shape, good body, and now women of a complete different race that is not your race are now all interested in you, I guess you just have to accept that maybe in the future this marriage is not going to last, because it's based on superficial things. These people are not interested in who you are deep down. They're interested in what you can do for them. So I just wanted to bring this up just to let you all know this topic that came to me. It's very important. Just be mindful. Make sure we're looking at the heart. Make sure you're looking at people's character, and make sure you are not trying to date someone from a different race because you're trying to escape something in yourself, or you don't love yourself, or you know you want to be able to show someone that you've got someone from a different race. Okay? Have a wonderful day. Bye.